Commander Tasic swiped his scaled hand across the holographic display, bringing up the newest security protocol that had just been approved by the Galactic Council. His 4 amber eyes blinked in sequence as he surveyed the room full of junior officers from 12 different species. The lighting in the briefing chamber cast an eerie blue glow across their varied anatomies. "Pay attention, because this might save your lives one day," Tasic announced, his gravelly voice echoing through the chamber. Protocol 17H, nicknamed the Silence Protocol. Effective immediately, all combat units are required to implement special alert systems that trigger when human squad members cease verbal communication during active engagement. A confused murmur rippled through the assembled officers. Lieutenant Pax Laura, a slender void arak with translucent skin, raised one of her tentacle-like appendages. "Commander, with respect, this seems excessive?" she questioned, mandibles clicking nervously. "Most species reduce communication during intense combat situations. Why create a specific alert for humans? They're among the most talkative allies we have." Several officers nodded in agreement. Humans were well known throughout the galactic community for their constant chatter, jokes, and banter, even in inappropriate situations. Creating an emergency protocol for when they stopped talking seemed counterintuitive. Tasic snorted, releasing a small puff of yellow vapor from his nostril slits. "That right there is exactly why you need this protocol, Lieutenant. You think you understand humans because they're friendly, because they seem so similar to many of us despite their strange appearance. But you don't. Not yet." He dimmed the lights further and expanded the holographic display to show footage from various combat scenarios involving human soldiers. The timestamp data indicated recordings from the past 15 galactic standard years. "Before I became security chief, I served in mixed species combat units during the early days of human integration into Council forces. I learned this lesson the hard way." Tasic's voice lowered, taking on an almost reverent quality. "Let me tell you about what happened during the Narvac mining colony incident, and why, to this day, veteran officers feel a chill when humans suddenly go quiet in battle." The room fell silent as the officers leaned forward, their attention completely captured. "It's not that you should be afraid of the humans," Tasic continued, his scarred face illuminated by the holographic glow. "It's that you should be very, very afraid for whoever they're about to engage when they stop talking." Tasic gestured to the timeline floating beside him, highlighting the year 2187 CE in the human calendar. "Humans joined the Galactic Council barely 30 years ago," he began, scrolling through historical footage. "An unremarkable event at the time. Just another sentient species discovering faster than light travel and stumbling onto our doorstep. No one expected much." The display showed the first human delegation entering the Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime. The aliens in the room chuckled as the recording highlighted the physical differences between humans and other Council races. "Look at them," Tasic said, pausing on an image of the human ambassador standing next to a towering Krolorian warrior. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no biological weapons, average speed and reflexes, auditory and visual senses that barely qualify as functional by Council standards. Many members dismissed them as diplomatic curiosities at best. Lieutenant Morax, a bulky Terrillian with ridged exoskeletal plates, rumbled with laughter. "They look so squishy." "Yes, they do," Tasic agreed, his tone hardening. "That was our first mistake." The timeline advanced, showing early cooperative missions. Humans working alongside established Council races on everything from scientific expeditions to humanitarian relief efforts. Within 5 years, human participation in joint projects increased by 700%, Tasic continued. They kept volunteering for the most dangerous assignments, the hardest diplomatic cases, the worst disaster zones. And they kept succeeding where others failed. The display shifted to show footage of a human team improvising a solution to an atmospheric processor failure on Belarus IV, using nothing but damaged equipment and basic tools. They think differently. They adapt constantly. And they work together in ways that confused our strategic analysts, Tasic explained. The High Command finally recognized their potential and pushed for integration into our military structure. Thus, the first mixed-species combat units were formed. The hologram showed the inaugural ceremony for Strike Team Omega, the first officially sanctioned combat unit with human members. "I served as second tactical officer on Strike Team Omega," Tazik said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. 3 Valthusians, 2 Krolorians, a Nyx Tari weapons specialist, and 4 humans. We thought we were preparing them for combat under Council protocols. He gave a short, barking laugh. We were so wrong. Tazik's expression darkened as he swiped to a new holographic display showing a mining facility built into the side of a barren, rocky moon. 15 standard months after formation, Strike Team Omega was deployed to Narvac 7, a critical mineral extraction colony in the outer rim that had gone silent. That's when we learned what humans are truly capable of when pushed to their limits. Tazik expanded the hologram of Narvac 7, zooming in on the sprawling mining complex carved into the moon's craggy surface. Atmospheric containment domes glittered like bubbles against the stark landscape. The Void Scourge had been raiding outer colonies for months, Tazik explained, his voice dropping to a growl. But Narvac 7 was different, strategic importance, over 2,000 civilian workers. And the first time we'd have solid intel on Scourge numbers and positioning. The display shifted to show Strike Team Omega's personnel files. Our commander was Valthusian High Captain Dresmore. The image showed a tall, angular being with metallic blue skin, brilliant tactician. By the book operator, absolutely hated human jokes. Several officers chuckled. Our team included Krolorian twins Lurk and Gark for heavy weapons support. 2 massive reptilian figures appeared, their scaled hides bristling with embedded ammunition pouches. Nyx Tari specialist Venzara handling tech warfare. A willowy figure with 6 arms and bioluminescent skin flickered onto the display. Tazik's expression softened slightly. And our human contingent. Lieutenant Noah Barnes, Communications. Private First Class Cassidy Reeves, Demolitions. Sergeant Tom Mendoza, Medic. He paused on the final personnel file. Special Operations Officer Ellie Jackson. The hologram showed a surprisingly small human female with short-cropped hair and dark eyes that seemed to evaluate everything around her. "Don't let the size fool you," Tazik said. Jackson had already compiled 17 confirmed kills against Scourge raiders before this mission. The display shifted to helmet cam footage from the operation. Prop was clean. Infiltration went by the book, Tazik narrated, as the footage showed the team moving through the mining facility's outer perimeter. And the humans, well, they never shut up. Audio playback filled the room. "Bet I get more kills than you, Reeves." Jackson's voice was light, playful. "In your dreams, Jackson." Reeves laughed. "Hey Mendoza, you keeping score?" "I'm a medic, not a scorekeeper," Mendoza replied. "Besides, I'll beat both of you anyway." Tazik paused the playback. This constant chatter drove Captain Dres more crazy, but it was just how humans operated. They coordinated, shared observations, and most annoyingly to us made jokes about potentially dying at any moment. He resumed the footage, showing the team encountering the first wave of Void Scourge twisted, chitinous creatures moving with unnatural speed. "First engagement went perfectly," Tazik continued. 26 hostiles eliminated. No casualties on our side. The humans maintained continuous communication throughout. Barnes, 3 coming around the left flank. Jackson, got him. Reeves, need that door breached yesterday. Reeves working on it. These locks are garbage. Who designed this place? Mendoza, less complaining, more exploding. The footage suddenly shifted to an exterior view of the facility. Dozens of Scourge drop pods crashed through the atmospheric containment field. What we didn't know, Tazik said grimly, was that we'd walked into a trap. This wasn't a raid. It was an invasion force using the missing miners as bait. The display showed tactical readouts, hundreds of enemy signatures converging on the facility from multiple entry points. We were outnumbered 20 to 1, Tazik said, his voice hollow with the memory. And that's when everything changed. Tazik manipulated the holographic display to show a three-dimensional map of the mining facility, with blinking dots representing team members. The tactical situation went from bad to catastrophic in moments. He continued, his voice tightening. Captain Dresmore ordered a strategic withdrawal to the central processing hub, the most defensible position. But the facility was designed with a maze-like structure to contain potential gas leaks or explosions. The display showed the team's retreat, fragmented and chaotic as Void Scourge forces swarmed through multiple entry points. First, we lost communications with Lieutenant Barnes when a section of the eastern corridor collapsed. A blue dot blinked and then dimmed on the display. Then the Krolorian twins were cut off defending our rear flank. 2 more dots separated from the main group. Tazik zoomed in on the central hub, where the remaining team members had gathered himself, Captain Dresmore, Venzara, and the 3 remaining humans, Jackson, Reeves, and Mendoza. Even then, the humans maintained their chatter. Different tone, more focused, but still talking. He activated another audio clip. Jackson, Barnes' last known position was Section E7. I can reach him through the maintenance tunnels. Reeves, negative. Too risky with hostiles in the ventilation systems. Mendoza, Captain, requesting permission to attempt extraction of the twins. They're pinned but still fighting. Dresmore, denied. We hold position until reinforcements arrive. And then Tazik said, his amber eyes narrowing, this happened. The footage showed a massive explosion rocking the central hub. Alarms blared as emergency containment doors began slamming shut. The team was scattered, thrown in different directions by the blast. A Void Scourge breaching charge took out our defensive position, Tazik explained. I was thrown clear across the room, temporarily stunned. When I regained awareness, I found myself separated from Captain Dresmore and Venzara, trapped with the 3 humans in the northeastern quadrant. He fast-forwarded to helmet cam footage, showing a smoky corridor littered with debris. The 3 humans were checking their weapons in eerie silence, not a word passing between them. I remember saying something to get their attention, Tazik recalled. Jackson, Reeves. What's our status? But they didn't respond, not verbally. Jackson just looked at me, then at the others. They nodded to each other, and that was it. Lieutenant Pax Laura leaned forward. They were in shock? Tazik shook his head. No. Their vital signs were steady. Heart rates actually decreasing, if anything. And their movements fluid, precise. But the talking, the constant human noise, it just stopped, completely. The footage continued, showing Jackson making hand signals to the others, who responded with simple gestures of their own. I wasn't concerned at first, Tazik admitted. I figured they were just being cautious, worried about alerting nearby hostiles. So I tried to take command of the situation. The recording showed a younger Tazik attempting to organize the humans, pointing and giving orders in a hushed tone. The humans acknowledged him with brief nods, but continued their silent communication with each other. What I didn't understand then was what this silence meant, Tazik said grimly. But there was someone who did. He switched the feed to another part of the facility, where Captain Dresmore and Venzara had regrouped with the veteran Krolorian warrior Greltak, who had joined from another squad. Greltak had fought alongside humans before, Tazik explained. When Dresmore reported losing contact with the human operatives, Greltak's reaction was illuminating. The recording showed the massive Krolorian grabbing Dresmore's shoulder, his expression intense. Have they gone silent? Greltak demanded in the footage. Not injured, not dead silent? When Dresmore confirmed, Greltak's response sent a chill through the briefing room. Then the Void Scourge are already dead. They just don't know it yet. Tazik dimmed the room's lights further and switched to personal cam footage from his own helmet. His voice took on a more personal tone as he narrated. What I'm about to show you has been classified level 8 until now. This is unedited footage from my own experience during the Narvac incident. The recording quality was raw, occasionally distorted by static, as it showed Tazik following the three humans through the darkened corridors of the mining facility. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across their path. We needed to link up with the captain and extract any surviving miners, Tazik explained. At least 30 Void Scourge stood between us and that objective. We had limited ammunition, no heavy weapons, and no tactical support. The footage showed Jackson raising her fist to signal to halt. She pointed to a junction ahead where shadows moved across the walls. Scourge patrols. What happened next, Tazik said quietly, fundamentally changed how I understand humans. In the recording, Jackson turned to face Reeves and Mendoza. No words were exchanged. She simply made 3 quick hand gestures. The other humans nodded, and then they changed. Watch, Tazik commanded the room. The officers leaned forward as one, transfixed by the footage. Jackson's posture shifted subtly. Her movements became smooth, almost liquid, as she edged toward the corner. Reeves moved in the opposite direction, ascending a maintenance ladder with eerie silence. Mendoza remained with Tazik, but his attention was utterly focused forward, his breathing so controlled it was barely perceptible. Their entire demeanor transformed, Tazik narrated. These weren't the same creatures who had been joking about death an hour earlier. They moved like predators I've seen on the death worlds of the Outer Rim, perfectly economical, unnervingly patient. The footage showed Jackson peering around the corner, then pulling back. She held up 7 fingers, then pointed in different directions, mapping enemy positions without a sound. And then, Tazik said, his voice dropping, the storm began. The recording showed Jackson nodding once to Mendoza. In perfect synchronization, Jackson rounded the corner while Reeves dropped from an overhead conduit. 7 Void Scourge warriors stood no chance. Jackson's combat knife found gaps in Chidna's armor with surgical precision. No wasted movement, no dramatic flourishes. Just 3 quick strikes, and 3 enemies collapsed. Simultaneously, Reeves descended upon 2 others, a garrote wire flashing in the dim light. The remaining Scourge turned to face these threats, only for Mendoza to emerge from behind Tazik and eliminate them with precisely placed shots to neural clusters. 7 enemies. Less than 6 seconds. Complete silence. Holy Void, whispered Lieutenant Pax Laura. That was just the beginning, Tazik continued. The footage advanced, showing the humans moving through the facility like ghosts. Each encounter followed the same pattern: silent assessment, wordless coordination, flawless execution. A patrol of Scourge ambushed from 3 directions. A nest of them overrun with nothing but blades to preserve ammunition. A heavily armed group outflanked and eliminated one by one. We encountered a barricade here, Tazik said, as the footage showed a heavily fortified position blocking their path. At least 12 hostiles with plasma cannons. In normal operations, this would warrant a tactical retreat and a call for support. Instead, the recording showed Jackson studying the position for exactly 30 seconds. She then removed her combat vest, stripped down to her underarmor, and covered herself in hydraulic fluid from a nearby ruptured pipe. I thought she'd lost her mind, Tazik admitted. Jackson looked at Reeves and tapped her wrist twice. Reeves immediately began assembling a small device from components in his pack. Meanwhile, Mendoza retrieved a canister from his medical kit and handed it to Jackson, who poured the contents of coagulant powder over the hydraulic fluid, creating a paste on her skin. Not one word, Tazik emphasized. Not a single question or confirmation between them. They just knew. The recording showed Jackson taking the device from Reeves and disappearing into a ventilation shaft. But 3 minutes later, the barricade erupted into chaos. The Scourge fired wildly at something moving among them, a fluid shadow that darted between their positions. Each burst of fire was followed by the collapse of another Scourge warrior. Jackson had coated herself in a mixture that masked her heat signature, Tazik explained. Reeves had assembled a sonic disruptor tuned to the frequency of Scourge communication organs. And Mendoza. The footage showed Mendoza and Reeves advancing methodically behind the distraction, neutralizing disoriented enemies with terrifying precision. "I've seen Krolorian berserkers in blood rage," Tazik said, his voice tinged with reverence and fear. "I've witnessed Valthusian death dancers execute perfect killing sequences. But I've never seen anything like humans in silent combat mode. The precision, the coordination, the absolute, unwavering focus." The recording continued, showing the team advancing through increasingly dense enemy resistance without a single casualty. 47 confirmed kills later, Tazik said, we reached Captain Dresmore's position. Not once during that entire operation did any of the humans speak a single word. Tazik switched the display to show the aftermath of the battle. The surviving members of Strike Team Omega had regrouped in what remained of the mining colony's command center. Emergency repairs to the atmospheric containment field cast everything in a flickering blue light. Council reinforcements arrived 6 hours after initial contact, Tazik explained. By then, we had secured the facility, rescued 28 surviving miners, and eliminated all Void Scourge presence. The mission was classified as a complete success. The footage showed Captain Dresmore debriefing the team, his metallic blue features set in a rare expression of genuine respect. But what caught the attention of everyone in the briefing room was the behavior of the humans. This, Tazik said, pointing to the recording, was perhaps the most disturbing part. The footage showed Jackson leaning against a wall, laughing as she compared kill counts with Reeves. Mendoza was busy treating a minor wound on Barnes' forehead while telling what appeared to be an inappropriate joke about Void Scourge anatomy. The 4 humans were animated, expressive, loud exactly as they had been before the attack. Like flipping a switch, Tazik said, his voice betraying his lingering disbelief. One moment, silent killing machines. The next, back to their usual insufferable selves. As if nothing extraordinary had happened. The hologram shifted to show the arrival of a human commander, a tall man with gray at his temples wearing the insignia of Earth's Combined Defense Force. Commander Marcus Wells arrived with the reinforcements, Tazik continued. After reviewing our reports, he requested a private conversation with me. The recording showed Tazik and Wells in a small observation room overlooking the devastated mining facility. "I'll never forget what he told me," Tazik said, his voice solemn. The footage captured their conversation. "Wells, you have questions about what you saw today." "Tazik, your soldiers changed. I've never seen anything like it." "Wells, it's called flow state, an ancient human psychological condition. When survival is on the line and communication becomes a liability, certain humans can enter a state of hyperfocus." "Tazik, but the coordination without words." "Wells, humans are pattern recognition machines, Commander. In combat scenarios, we can predict team member actions based on shared training and environmental cues. The silence isn't about stealth. It's about mental resources being redirected from verbal processing to combat awareness." "Tazik, they killed 47 elite Void Scourge warriors with minimal ammunition and no casualties." Wells smiled thinly in the recording. "You're lucky. If they'd been truly cornered, with no hope of rescue or survival, you'd have seen something far worse." After that conversation, Tazik told the assembled officers, "I spent 3 months studying human combat psychology. What I learned changed everything we thought we knew about our new allies." The display showed data comparing human combat effectiveness in normal operations versus silent operations. A 300% increase in kill efficiency, Tazik pointed out. A 70% decrease in friendly fire incidents. And an 85% increase in tactical innovation. He paused, looking around the room at the stunned faces of his junior officers. "But most importantly, I learned this: when humans go silent in battle, it's not a sign of fear or panic. It's a warning that they've stopped treating combat as a cooperative exercise and started treating it as an existential imperative." Tazik switched the display to the Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime. The footage showed him standing before the assembled representatives of 27 spacefaring civilizations, presenting his findings. I spent the next 2 galactic standard years compiling evidence and building my case, Tazik explained to the junior officers. The council initially thought I was overreacting. After all, humans were still considered the friendly newcomers to galactic society. The hologram showed various council members looking skeptical as Tazik presented combat footage similar to what the junior officers had just witnessed. The turning point came when we convinced the council to fund a joint research initiative with human military psychologists, Tazik continued. Hundreds of combat scenarios were analyzed, thousands of hours of helmet cam footage reviewed. He displayed a series of brain scans comparing human neural activity during normal operations versus silent combat mode. The difference was striking, entire regions shutting down while others flared with intense activity. Human scientists had been studying this phenomenon for centuries, Tazik said. They called it by many names throughout their history: battle trance, combat flow, the quiet place. Their ancient warriors recognized it before they had the science to explain it. The display shifted to show the first draft of what would eventually become Protocol 17H. The High Command immediately recognized the tactical implications, Tazik said. If we could identify when humans entered this state, we could not only clear their path but predict the flow of battle with unprecedented accuracy. The footage showed special alert systems being installed in combat armor across Council forces. Small indicators that would flash when human squad members ceased verbal communication for more than 30 seconds during active engagement. Every mixed-species combat unit was retrained, Tazik said. Every tactical officer briefed. The protocol was simple. When human allies go silent, do not interfere with their movements. Provide support as requested through non-verbal cues. And most importantly, be prepared for extremely high-intensity combat operations. He brought the display back to the present, showing the final version of Protocol 17H that had been approved just days ago. Today, this protocol becomes standard across all Council military operations, Tazik concluded. Because now we understand that human silence isn't a disadvantage or a failure of communication. It's one of the most powerful tactical advantages in our arsenal. Commander Tazik powered down the holographic display, returning the briefing room to its normal lighting. The assembled junior officers sat in stunned silence, processing everything they had witnessed. No longer were there confused looks or skeptical expressions, only a newfound respect and perhaps a touch of apprehension. So now you understand, Tazik said, his gravelly voice breaking the silence. Protocol 17H isn't excessive. It's essential. Lieutenant Pax Laura raised her tentacle-like appendage again, but this time her mandibles weren't clicking with skepticism. Commander, she asked quietly, has this silent state been observed in other combat situations since Narvak? Tazik nodded slowly. 14 documented instances in the past decade. Each time, the outcome was the same: overwhelming tactical success against seemingly impossible odds. He moved to the center of the room, his amber eyes scanning the faces of each junior officer. You will all serve alongside humans during your careers, he stated. You will grow accustomed to their constant noise, their inappropriate jokes, their strange idioms and references. You might even find it annoying or unprofessional. Tazik leaned forward, his scarred face intense under the lights. But remember this warning above all else: when the humans suddenly go quiet in battle, that's not when you should worry about them. He paused, letting his words sink in. That's when you should worry for whoever they're fighting.